2015 to date. And there's many conversations with regards, how divided Nigeria currently is. Tunde Bakare, in his tweets, had said that, in 2015, it seemed like Nigeria was completely divided and, the country was, going to, fall into chaos before the current administration stepped in. But there's people who would argue that it seems to be worse now, and the level of division across Nigeria today seems to be worse than it was in 2015. But, that's, the different narratives that come up here and there when people read through that thread.
Exactly. So let's take a break here and return with Off the Press. Do stay with us.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
This Medan has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
We now start hearing the shoot of guns.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
You're welcome back to the Breakfast on Plus TV Africa, and kick-starting Off the Press, we've invited Mr. Tunde Kolawole. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, my sister. How are you doing today?
Well, great. Happy holidays.
Same to you. Hope you are enjoying your Easter.
Yes, we are. Thank you. All right.
The sacrifices of our Lord Jesus Christ enrich all of us and cleanse our nation.
Thank you. All right, let's begin with the Nation newspaper this morning. It reads, Presidency, Kuka, clash over Nigeria, a killing field claim. Obasanjo, Gumi, let special courts try bandits. Buhari's legacy in grave danger, Bakare warns. Ex-governors, senators own 130 Dubai assets. EFCC gets reports. Asman's Eddie flight resumption plan shaky. Telecom sector takes hits from new SIM ban. Naira stable despite dollar demand pressure. Pope slams arms spending in time of pandemic. 20 policemen killed in March, says IG. And Buhari mourns activist Chukuma. New law of worry likely today. And April 10, PDP Congress date erues. Still the same story. Gunmen kill policemen, others in Delta and Kaduna State. Those are the stories on The Nation this morning.
Right, now moving on to the Punch newspapers. This one here says, Nigeria's health in danger. Buhari pampers terrorists, and that's from Tuni Bakare and Bishop Kuka. Also, Buhari continuing with Jonathan's opaque subsidy regime he promised to change, says Bakare. It's strange rehabilitating terrorists and bandits and neglecting abducted school children, Bishop Kuka is saying. And of course, in response, Kuka did not speak like a man of God. Cleric's message lacks fairness, says the presidency. Also on the Punch this morning, pension scheme records 62,596 deaths. Relatives paid 205.12 billion naira. Easter, Osinbajo governors and others preach unity and love. Obasanjo, Gumi recommend special courts for bandits after closed-door meeting. And federal government will reopen talks with striking resident doctors, and that's from Ngige. I wish my husband could read tributes of those he criticized, and that's from Joe Dumakin. Wanted court is nabbed for killing policemen and others in Lagos. And we can also see on the Punch this morning, NDLA arrests traffickers with 564 million naira heroin at Abuja Airport. Amotekun rescues 3 Ondo travelers as kidnappers flee. And the last one I'll share this morning, Bielsa sets up emergency centers as cholera kills 24.
And on the Guardian newspaper, the Bakare, Kuka, and story here says, hit FG with damning reports on The Nation. Fears over surge in casualties as doctor strike enters 5th day. Patients lament epileptic healthcare services. NARD won't call off strike until demands are met. And NMA can only intercede when government pays arrears. Fragile peace as banks unblock MTN's USSD platform. Sheikh Sani advises Tinubu to learn from Abiola's travails. Terrorists kill 5, injure 1 in Kaduna. And all Kogi athletes officials test 100% negative to COVID-19. Those are the stories here on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Nigerian Tribune, Nigeria has become a massive killing field. Bishop Kuka is quoted as saying, also Nigeria in a state of emergency, its survival hanging, Bakare says. And also OBJ Gumi meet list over 20 solutions to insecurity. 1 special court to deal promptly with cases of banditry, kidnapping, unlawful carrying of weapons. And it also says, federal government must be proactive, secure necessary and updated intelligence to deal with organized crimes. A few others. Judicial workers begin nationwide strike tomorrow to shut down courts. Snakes and alligators taking over a Ikorodu government warehouse, terminal and freight forwarders raise alarm. And we can also see here, Serap sues Buhari over 3.8 billion naira NAFDAC and Health Ministry hospitals funds. We can also just quickly share the escalating debts may worsen social unrest and political tension. And that is from the United Nations. And once again, the activists we lost, Dumaki, and that's from Femi Falana, Akintoye, and others. Those are the big ones on the Tribune. Mr. Kolawole, over to you now.
Thank you, my brother. Honestly speaking, most of the stories that you have on the front page of all the newspapers today are stories that ordinarily one would have loved to comment on all of them because of the significance, the importance all those stories have to the well-being of the Nigerian nation. But because of lack of time, that is practically impossible. Let me quickly address the issues that have been raised by Bakare and Reverend Father Kuka and also General Olusegun Obasanjo. The truth of the matter is that just like Kuka has said, and then like Bakari, the fate of the Nigerian nation is hanging on the cliff, and we really require divine intervention for the situation not to explode before our eyes. Now, to General Obasanjo's recommendations, is it a specialized court that is likely to give us security, stability, peace, and order in Nigeria? The answer is no. Why do I say this? It's like when a man has a cancer and he begins to treat a ringworm, the reality will be that he will be scratching something in the face when he really should be addressing the issue, the fundamental issues of the cancer that he has. We are in this problem, insecurity, and the precipice in which the Nigerian nation is hanging for 2 or 3 reasons. One, the economy is in bad shape, simply because this democracy is a money guzzler. It is a democracy that this country does not have the resources to sustain. If we were a planning nation, we would have sat down, I think like they did in Ivory Coast, and review not just the cost of this democracy, but the cost of governance, so as to bring it within the context of the resources that is available to us. But very strangely too, we have continued to carry on as if the resources will always be there to continue this unsustainable political system. If you have a specialized court in virtually all the local governments, if you have a specialized court in virtually all the wards in Nigeria to address the issue of insecurity, the issue of banditry, and capital armed robbery, urban banditry, and what have you, that is never likely to give us a solution. The solution would be to cut down the cost of governance on the cost of this democracy so that we can free some resources into developmental structures of the Nigerian nation. And the industries can begin to work. The infrastructures can be rebuilt. Our schools can be put back in the shape they ordinarily should be. So that is one. Secondly, you will see, especially if you are one of those who interact with our security system, that there is absolutely no security in Nigeria today, whether it be the police, whether it be the customs, whether it be the immigration, whether it be the Nigerian army. Most of our police stations, or with due respect, most of our policemen work in tandem with hardened criminals. Most of them are informants to hardened criminals. Some of them, like the defunct SAR, were directly engaged in all sorts of heinous criminality. And the police stations have become, and also the market, where justice is traded on the platter of dirty wares. So you will have to reorganize the Nigerian police. You will have to reorganize the Nigerian army. You will have to reorganize the Nigerian customs. For example, we close the borders to achieve certain results. Ensure that the proliferation of arms is stopped, that arms and ammunition don't get into the country again, and the smuggling of goods and services is curtailed. But did we achieve that result? We didn't achieve the result because the customs and exercise that is starting with that responsibilities has woefully failed the Nigerian nation. You also have an army that has not been able to defeat a ragtag religious fundamentalist guerrilla army over a period of 10 years. And lo and behold, the fundamentalists are getting more and more emboldened. They are mastering the terrain, They also have now a structured means of access to arms and ammunition. So if you have that kind of a challenge in your hand, how do you defeat that kind of a guerrilla army without a fundamental restructuring of the Nigerian nation? But lo and behold, that is a thing we are not prepared to do. Furthermore, more importantly, you and I will remember that before the advent of this civil war, we never had these serious challenges of insecurity in our country. The insecurity began when the different political parties, when the different individuals began to form their private armies, their military groups to compel and force the electorate to vote in certain directions, and where they refuse not to even vote at all. All those private armies, all those different military groups are well armed, they are well financed, they are well funded. They are also people that the conventional security like the police and the army and the civil defense are too afraid to deal with because of their relationship with the politicians. So if you want security in the country, you will also have to disband the different military groups that have been established by the politicians.
All right, let's turn from security matters now to another big story in Nigeria, and it's about this doctor strike. It's been on since Thursday, April 1st, and the federal government here, we see Ngige saying they will reopen talks with striking doctors and striking resident doctors. But NAD, on their part, have said that they are not, entirely keen on negotiations because they've had lots of these before, but, the government failed to basically fulfill their parts of the agreement. I don't know what you think, this would probably lead to, because there have been talks on social media, people sharing experiences about how they have, loved ones with serious health conditions that can't get care at the moment.
Well, let's kind of marry the strike that the judicial staff have said they will be embarking upon from tomorrow with that of the medical doctors. Truth of the matter is, when you go to the Nigerian hospitals today, especially the public hospitals, they are worse than glorified clinics that we used to describe them in the past. Hardly can you get any services done in those hospitals efficiently, smoothly, and timely. You also have to pay heavily for the inefficiencies that you find in some of these hospitals. Furthermore, the basic tools that the medical doctors, that the nurses, that the laboratory scientists, and the other allied workers have to work with are not there. The little emoluments and salaries that the ordinarily should be paid don't come timely because the country has gone bankrupt and the Central Bank of Nigeria is merely printing money to pay people's salaries and buy services. Well, I would say, just like I've always emphasized, as it is good for us to agitate for our rights, to insist that government should do the right thing to all manners of its workers at the right time, we must also remember, like I've always been emphasizing, that our cause will always be wishful thinking until we have had good governance in this country.
All right.
Every facet of our life are in rot. They are in decay. There is nothing that is functioning. For example,
still talking, Mr. Tunde Kolawole, we're still talking healthcare here. There's a story on the Nigerian Tribune that says Serap is suing the president over his failure to respond to the 3.8 billion naira NAFDAC, Health Ministry and hospitals funds that are allegedly missing. Can you also share your thoughts on that one?
Well, the Serap people are doing a very good job. In all civilized societies, people are encouraged to use dialogue conciliation and concessions and what have you to resolve issues. And when that doesn't work, you go to ventilate your anger, and then the court or the judiciary would come up with a decision as regards the disputes between the parties. That is how civilized people should behave. But from what we have seen in the past activities of SERAP and then government response to the decision or some of the decisions that SERAP has gotten in court, I am not too sure that the approach of SERAP has been effective. It's like a man knocking his head against a wall because the government has remained impervious to most of the decisions that have come from our court and the yearnings and aspirations of our people. What this tells us is that we might need to combine civil action with litigation if we are going to be achieving success, if we are going to be able to move the government of the day to really do the right thing, not just in relation to the NAFDAC funds, but as it regards education, health, infrastructure, good governance, cutting down of the cost of democracy, and also moving the nation forward in the areas of security, stability, peace, and inclusive governance.
Okay, Mr. Tunde Kolawole, we know that over the weekend we heard the very sad news about the demise of Yinka Odumaki, spokesperson of Afenifere. And we've seen how national leaders, the president, ex-president Olusegun Obasanjo, Goodluck Jonathan, poured tribute, to him. And Joe Odumaki, his wife, is now saying she wished her husband could read tributes of those who he criticized. And she was talking about how it was important for us to celebrate people while they're alive, and not keep that off till, they pass on. Let's get your comments on this, shocking news about, the demise of Yinka Odumaki.
Honestly speaking, the death of Mr. Yinka Odumaki came to me as a very, very rude shock. One not have fathomed that such a young man, such a vibrant mind will pass away this suddenly and very cheaply to an opportunistic disease or virus. His death has reminded me of that of Bamidele Aturu, fire-eating Nigerian lawyer who was in the forefront of the fight for the rule of law, good governance, and peace and stability for the Nigerian nation for so many days. What this tells us is that this COVID thing is a reality. It's a reality that we all must pay attention to. The Nigerian people should begin to take precautions and turn away from this nonchalant attitude to the COVID pandemic, that it doesn't exist, that it is a disease for the big people, that it's not a disease a black man ordinarily should be afflicted with. We have seen it happen to Yinka Odumaki. We have seen it happen to Bolu Akeolubade. We have also seen it happen to the Tanzania president. For Yinka, he is a man who was with us in those days in the Marxist-Leninist movement. He was a radical activist before he later in life became a religious irredentist. And he wouldn't be the first radical thinker to become a religious irredentist. If you take a look at the history of the Nigerian socialist movement, of the progressive movement, of the radical movement, you would have seen that so many people, just like Yinka, people like Gigi Dara, people like Comrade Olaoni, people like Baba Omojola, who once espoused very radical thoughts will later in life become religious irredentists. This tells us, or this is kind of making me ask the question, is there something about tribe? Is there something about nationhood that people like Yinka Odumake have seen? To such an extent that they became spokesperson for Afenifere rather than campaigning on the level of a nationalist that they used to be. Could it be that the tribe is not a thing that you can wish away? If we take the example of what has happened in Britain, or what is happening in Catalonia, and what has happened with the Irish people, and what happened in the defunct Soviet Union.
All right, Mr. Kolawole, just to chip in there, the wife of Yinka Odumake had said that he had recovered from coronavirus 1 week ago before he passed on.
And also, to also mention, we also lost a social activist, Innocent Chukwuma, the founder of Clean Foundation, also passed on over the weekend. So, it's two very strong voices that the country lost over the weekend. We hope that, of course, the persons who continue to speak truth to power would continue, with the work that they do. I want you to quickly also address, the idea of Sheikh Gumi meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari, former President Olusegun Obasanjo. What are your thoughts of their meeting in the first place, and the recommendations that came out of all of that? I know you had spoken a little bit about it before, but do you think or do you agree that it's all in good faith?
You mean a specialized court or something?
No, the meeting that they had in the first place, and then their recommendations. Tunde Kolawole, can you hear us?
Mr. Kolawole, are you there?
What? I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I'm not too sure that the meeting that those people have had is going to address or solve any problems. Nigeria is not lacking in recommendations. I mean, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan organized a conference in which all areas of our life were well debated and recommendations were made. And since the return to this civil rule, we have had all manners of organizations making meetings and making recommendations and all that. But lo and behold, the people in government have remained impervious to those recommendations. As soon as the recommendations are made and submitted to government, they are merely put in the archives after their so-called white paper has been written about it. That is if they ever bother at all to write any white paper on some of the recommendations that have been made to government. So my take is that the wumbling and fumbling that is associated with the present governance will continue until 2023 without any of these recommendations, whether coming from Obasanjo's group or from Arewa or from Afenifere, without any government paying attention to them. And if care is not taken, the wumbling and fumbling will also continue after 2023, because I have not seen any alternative on ground now. So the tragedy, the monumental tragedy that we have in our hands with regards to our political class, with regards to our political system, with regards to our approach to the financing of this democracy, with regards to the collapse of the industry, with regards to massive unemployment, with regards to deplorable educational system, with regards to the decay in the hospitals and what have you.
There's a lot of these angles there's a lot of these angles that I believe, would always come up in our conversations here. And of course, maybe also more and more recommendations from past leaders and from church leaders. But of course, I would always be eager to speak on them. Thank you very much, Tunde Kolawole, for joining us and for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Yes, thank you. And have a great day.
All right, Sims is gone. All right, we'll go on a short break. When we come back, we're moving to share with you things that happened today, the 5th of April, many, many years ago, in Today in History here on The Breakfast. Stay with us.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The special anti-robbery squad who are now killing innocent citizens instead of dealing with robbers. Your axe will catch up with you. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare. Sundays, 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thought and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation, as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
Welcome back to the Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. It's now time for Today in History. And the news I have to share is a very sad one. Today in History, April 5th, 2013, over 60 people died in a ghastly multiple crash on the Benin-Ore Expressway. They were burned to death in a fatal multiple accident that involved a trailer, an oil tanker, and a luxury bus. This accident, like I said earlier, occurred on the Benin-Ore Expressway, and it caused very heavy gridlock, and people were stranded on the dual carriageway for several hours. The passengers of the luxury bus who were rescued were rushed to a nearby hospital, and they were badly burnt. The driver of the trailer, his assistant, and 57 passengers in the luxury bus were among the dead. Witnesses say the accident occurred at about 1:30 p.m. when a trailer loaded with cement reportedly had a burst tire and it rammed into a petrol tanker carrying fuel, which hit the fully loaded luxury bus. An official of the Federal Road Safety Commission, FRC, explained that the trailer was, coming from Lagos, while the tanker and the luxury bus were said to be traveling in the opposite direction. Only 3 people were rescued from this accident that occurred today in history.
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in since 2013, and that is, 8 years ago. you would expect that, those families maybe would have healed, but, by now, but 60 people is a lot to lose in one day. And this really just, is another reminder that every day that you wake up in Nigeria and you go to sleep, at the end of the day, you should be grateful and thankful, because you can never really tell, what type of accident could have occurred in that day. I'm sure that some of these people, said their prayers in the morning and went out, and you just would not be expecting, this type of thing to happen. It also, of course, might be a good day to create those questions about how safe are, our roads these days. How safe are the tires that people use on their vehicles? How safe are some of the vehicles that we see plying, the roads? But, at the end, you still would just say it was an accident. No matter how much blame goes around, it wouldn't bring back those lives. But, also, to remind everyone that, it's not the FRSC being stubborn when they ask you for, your spare tires, and they ask you, to show you some of the things that are very, necessary to keep you safe, roadworthiness of the vehicles. There's a lot of, government vehicles that are not even roadworthy, but, they're still on the road. It still doesn't stop them from asking those questions. And rest in peace to those lives. And, of course, our condolences go out to their family. April 5th, 2013, once again, 60 people lost their lives. All right, I'm also going to be talking of a sad story, and now I'm talking of, another example of where fame eventually leads to suicide. Kurt Cobain is his name, and he was one of the most famous band members, many, many years ago, in the 90s, actually. It was on this day that he committed suicide in the year 1994. He initially had, problem with drug abuse and, alcohol and all of that. Before this day. And of course, there's a point that he actually even went into rehab, checked himself into rehab, and then, left the rehabilitation center without telling anyone. He was missing for a while, was eventually found, and a day after he was found by private investigators when he killed himself. He was a rock icon, and on this day he killed himself, in his home in Seattle, Washington. 3 days later, he was found by an electrician who was installing a security system in the house. His downward spiral began taking shape, in Italy the previous month, when people noticed that he went into a coma and nearly died after mixing champagne and the drug Rofinol. He, of course, now continued with the drug problem. His friends and family knew that he had a drug problem, and he continued to spin out of control. When they attempted to intervene, Cobain mostly ignored their concerns and reluctantly checked into the rehabilitation center I spoke about earlier. On the 30th of March, just a couple of days before this, he walked away from rehab without informing friends or family members or anything. And his wife, Love, her name was Love, then got a private investigator to help find him. He was eventually found somewhere in Seattle, but refused to return back to Los Angeles. And it was a couple of days after this, that he got a gun from his friend. He convinced his friend to buy him a gun, and that was the end. He, of course, left a suicide note that ended by saying, "It's better to burn out than to fade away." So this might also be Kurt Cobain's dealing with the fact that, fame had hit him in a way that he probably couldn't handle it, couldn't manage, and he also maybe didn't think that it was going to be around for so long, and so decided to end it a lot faster than people had imagined. So yes, rest in peace to him. There's a lot of other people who have also gone down this path, and struggled with depression, struggled with fame, struggled with not being as popular as they were maybe a couple of years ago, and not being able to handle it. Went into drugs. Alcohol and all of that, eventually lost their lives. Whitney Houston is one person that people would always remember. Maybe also one of the most popular persons who, of course, went down that path and eventually lost her life. So,
but with specific, relevance to committing suicide by people who seem to have it all, people you look up to and say, I want to be like this person. I mean, remember Anthony Bourdain, the American chef, author, television personality, reportedly hung himself in 2018. Lots of other footballers, actresses.
Robin Williams also.
It's just so sad. I wish we could actually get a glimpse of what these people might have been going through, or if they had just shared their stories, because we never can rationalize this. Why would someone who seemed to have everything, people you look up to, people you want to model yourself after, they seem to have it all: finances, love, career, and then you hear in the news that they hung themselves, shot themselves. It's just
it really just also tells you that when people say money is not everything, it's it's examples like this that they point to. That you might have all the money in the world and all the fame in the world, but you don't have the happiness that you seek. And then when that sadness creeps in, there's no amount of money that would change it. It definitely, and maybe it also even helps make it worse when you are dealing with that level of depression or unhappiness. So yes, money is not everything. I would like to have a lot of it. But also quickly remind everyone that money isn't everything. Yeah, I still want a lot. I want a
very prudent life.
Yes, I still want a lot
Very
of it.
humble.
It's better to say money is not everything for my Bentley than to say money is not everything stuck in traffic in a BRT in Lagos. Anyway.
No shade if you use a BRT. Please
no
use
shade.
the BRT. All right.
That's all we have for you today in history. 1994 and the year 2013. Both really sad stories, but yeah, we're alive and of course kicking this morning. 5th of April, let's get straight into our first major conversation for today. And that comes up right after this short break here on The Breakfast.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of gun.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Great to have you back here on The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Our first major conversation this morning is a follow-up to something we already spoke about, and that is the Minister of Labour, Chris Ngige, of course, saying that there would be another continued discussion with the NARD, the National Association of Resident Doctors, to hopefully end their strike, which has been on for about 5 days now. Over the weekend, also in an interview, Chris Ngige was also, seen making, certain statements, saying that, they might invoke, labor laws on the NARD and, of course, the doctors. And so we've been joined this morning by the president of the National Association of Resident Doctors, Dr. Uyilawa Okwaisui. And, of course, he's joining us to speak this morning and share recent updates so far. Good morning, Dr. Uyilawa.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. All right, we are 5 days into the strike. Quickly share with us what has happened in the last 5 days. Online, there's people who I've seen put out videos of not being able to get medical care in hospitals. There's also people who are of course suffering a lot of the the effects of this strike. But what has the last 5 days been like for resident doctors? Have you gotten any message or word from the Nigerian government?
It has been a stressful period for doctors and health workers generally, because we have been at the brunt of all the insincerity and the bad governance of the country. And it's quite sad when you now start getting threats from those in authority and those that you feel would help you get the problems being solved. He came in and said that we had a memorandum of action that was signed by us. But the sincere truth is that the memorandum actually signed was for us to take it back to our members, the National Executive Council, to review and see that what was given to us have been met. As it stands, apart from the abolishment of the bench fees, which superannuary good pay, none has been done. We are still being owed 4 months salaries to house officers and residents each week. We're still being paid 5,000 naira as an allowance. A debt service insurance have been paid to anybody. Signed memorandum of understanding last year and other years to come. So it has been a 5-year period of insincerity, no commitment from government, just putting pen to paper without honoring any action that was written down. So you come to ask them, are they really prioritizing health of your nation as part of the governance? It's just a simple question we are asking. And the strike is not just by me, it's by the National Association of Resident Doctors and NEC executive.
Okay, we saw, statements from NAD saying we want an implementation of the agreement and not an MOU. Why is this? I ask because, it's these conversations, drafting of MOUs that lead to, the government fulfilling its own, parts of the promise. So why is NAD insisting on not signing an MOU with the government?
I'll tell you for a fact that the things we have written down now are things that have been on for over 10 years. The same issue of hazard allowance of 5,000 naira. You bet to me that the minister said it has been done since negotiation have started since 1992. You bet to us that the dilapidating state of all health institutions have been alarming. In global best practices, you go for the best things to be able to accommodate all health workers to be able to work in the hospitals. If we had such things in our hospitals now, you will know that you don't need to travel anywhere to seek for health care. You claim you are doing things in the hospitals generally, but do you know that in most of the hospitals in Nigeria, we don't have any functional MRI, no functional CT scans. If somebody has cancer, you can barely tell which center you can do a radiotherapy. These are things we're asking the government. You make people to work, and when eventuality comes and they die or they develop complications, they are left to suffer with their loved ones, to suffer when they have lost the breadwinner of the house. You make people to work for 4 months and now to turn to begging for alms to even survive. And you think we're not human beings too? The physician's oath tells us to also take care of your health first before you can take care of people's health. If you are hungry, you are not able to eat, you're not able to do the best basic things of life, then how would you give care to other people? Are there been owed salaries up to now? None of them, I think, are owed salaries. So do we need to travel out to get best health care when you can develop us as in our country? Those are things we're asking Nigerians to help us ask the government to try and pay more responsibility to their teams in their own country.
All right.
Also, take our money and use for medical tourism.
Also share a little bit. You mentioned threat messages that you had received. Where are these coming from? And, what kind of messages, are we talking about here?
Most of my members have been called by either the DSS and the police. And you heard the one live on TV when the minister said he's going to implement no work, no pay. Those are antics of the government, and they have done it to several people. But have you implemented such ways in trying to regulate those people that are the cause of the strike? Have you implemented anything about the NBCN registrar who refused to let the house officers be paid? Have you implemented anything on the chief medical directors that played with the GIFMIX platform and let resident doctors not to be paid? Have you implemented anything on those that have left the hospital to be dilapidated and without paying any much interest in what happens there? These are questions we should be asking. You are quick at wanting to punish when you don't try and correct the system. The system is a failure and has failed a long time back when you can provide basic things for the country and to the health sector. So if you want to implement any policy measure, it's been implemented on those that have failed us and those that tell us that an officer don't know what to do. All these strikes are preventable. So if they are taught on how to do their jobs or taught to resign from their job when you're not competent enough to do the right things, that's where we should go to. Not want to say no work, no pay. You bring local doctors to take over the works of residents that are trying to be specialists in neurosurgery, in orthopedic surgery, and cardiac surgeries, and you want to replace them with locum doctors. That means we have lost priorities, we have lost realities with what's happening in medicine. I hope we go back to check what our priorities really are.
I hope we can get to talk, because I also really want to ask about CMDs now, but just before we get there, quickly share, when you say you've gotten, or your members have gotten calls from the DSS and from the police, are they asking that the strike be called off? Or are they, making other statements that the public needs to hear about?
I mean, no one to dwell into that because the next thing I will get a call also, which I've already gotten one earlier. But those are things, antics, and those are things we suffer as being leaders. Sacrifices are made, and the choice of going on a strike is not an individual choice. The choice by the Nigerian Association of Doctors, by the NEC members, and they should pay more emphasis on trying to stop the problem and not cause other problems.
All right.
So they should direct their attacks on where they should direct their attacks to. Direct attacks on those people that have said that they have given to the insurance company 13.9 billion naira when no debt and service insurance have been paid to anybody. They should direct their attacks to when they say the numbers given to the MDCN were overblotted and they have not done anything to put them to caution. That is where they should direct their attacks to.
So if you're getting calls, if you claim to get calls from people in power to shelve the strike, do you think this is becoming political?
I don't want to look at the political angle. I want to look at the whole sum. The whole sum is getting best health care services in Nigeria, getting the hospitals to be equipped, getting the manpower to feed those hospitals, and getting the right things done. That is where I lay my emphasis on. In the long run, we'll fight for Nigerians for a better healthcare, a better good facility to go get the best practices. The global best practices is what we are fighting for. And if in all, went ways to try and prevent brain drain. Because if you go abroad, you know that you have better job security, better insurance, better places where you don't get kidnapped, better places where you know your welfare is put at topmost priority, and you allow people to travel. Then you wonder what happens to our parents and loved ones when they fall ill and are not able to travel. We may not all be opportune enough to travel abroad, but you can develop where you are and where you can get good health care, and things will work well for all Nigerians. So they should not look at it as an attack on the government. They should not look at it as a political statement. They should look at it as sensitizations of Nigerians to actually question that the government should be more responsible.
All right. Now let me bring back the part where the CMDs, the role of CMDs, over time. I grew up in Benin, so I went through, actually lived, around UBTH for a long time, and so it's always been something that I've heard a lot about, corruption from chief medical directors and the likes. So do you, also blame them a lot for the failure of the systems across hospitals, in Nigeria? State and federal hospitals, do you think that CMDs have also completely failed to properly fund the hospitals or properly utilize funds in hospitals?
I won't say CMDs have failed in funding the hospital. The funding of the hospital is from the government. But I would say CMDs have failed in not being truthful to the system. I'll give some examples. If you go to Federal Neuropsychiatry Hospital in Yaba, you will find out that most of the doctors there are local doctors not permanent staffs. They have told us time without number, telling us that there have been an embargo on employment, and intend to employ resident doctors that are saying are not even enough as locum doctors, and you pay them virtually half of their salary. This is alarming, and we need to put them on check. And that's why we may need to call on the ICPC and EFCC to try investigate what is happening within the hospital and the health sector generally. You don't put hold salaries meant for employees and keep them. Then you employ those that you know you pay half sum of money and are not in training yet to take over what residents really do. That is where I call them to be responsible enough. And I also go back to the list we sent for the interns, where we from our association sent about 2,136 to the government. Meanwhile, they're telling us that they have virtually more than half of that number. So you now come to say, what is the idea in sending such numbers when you know they're not really your employees? Those are things needs to be investigated. And we need to check it to know that we are being sincere to Nigerians as first, before you now blame government on that. Everybody has a role to play in what is happening in Nigeria. And it's high time everybody sits up to give Nigeria a better care in the health sector.
Okay, so talking about that, just how much support do you think you've received, or the doctors have received from Nigerians regarding the strike?
I would say for the first time, every Nigerian knows that this is not our fault. And I must commend the media house and the people on Twitter, televisions, and Nigerians that have seen that really we are suffering and taking us, not just for us, for being responsible to Nigerians to deliver better health care. And we say a big thank you to you all. But I also want to call on Nigerians to please come and cry out more to the government and tell them that being responsible means taking care of your economy, taking care of your health sector, taking care of Nigerians, making sure the average Nigerians are able to at least get the best for all of us in Nigeria. Medical tourism that is now one of the problems we're facing is a way of putting a drain on the economy of Nigeria. If you are able to develop your own country, I guess the amount spent on such journeys can be minimized to the minimum level. You should be able to purchase such equipment that you claim are not in Nigeria to all hospitals in Nigeria, and to help a lot in developing your country.
All right.
It's one of the plights we ask Nigerians to beg them, the government, to be able to invest more in their health sector.
Dr. Uyilawa, with all the threats, that you said, yourself and other of your members have received, and of course the message that the Minister of Labour, Dr. Chris Ngige, is also putting out, are you still saying that if there is no implementation of the demands that the NARD has made, and of course payment of your 4-month salaries, increment of your hazard allowance, amongst other things, are you saying that if these things do not, are not implemented, the strike will not be called off? Or is there room still for negotiation?
The directive from the National Executive Council have given us the power to tell government that until our demands are met, the total and indefinite strike will continue. They can implement anything they want instead of implementing the right things. And we will stay by what we have sworn to as being the Executive Council, to be able to make sure that we fight for the welfare of all our members.
And the no work, no pay threat, does that scare you?
It too scares me because we already know having been paid for 4 months. So what more threat can you have when you have not been paid for 4 months? We're already suffering what the no work, no pay will do. And if he wants to inflict more sufferings on the health sector and on doctors, he can go ahead. But I hope he also tends to know that if his salaries are not paid for just a month, if he asks for a no work no pay to be made on those in control of his salaries, he should also be asked also to know that if he's made to lose loved ones and lose relatives that are doctors or nurses or pharmacists or medical lab scientists, and they're not paid insurance, if it would be good for those that he work for. He should also be known to know for if he cannot pay good hazard allowance of 5,000 naira to all health sectors and sit down in upper chambers and get 1.2 million naira for hardship allowance, it should be known also to the government. These are what we ask for. There should be more responsible to the plight of us and not just the puppet makers. I'm sorry for the word I just used, but I'm just being truthful.
All right. You know, there are some people who still believe that medical doctors have no rights to strike and that they've sworn an oath to protect lives, and that there are lots of people who need urgent medical care but can't access that because of the current strike. So how would you convince those people to see your point of view, you know, in regards to the dearth in healthcare infrastructure? For example, I'm looking at a picture that NAD Nigeria put up, and it's a dark room of, you know, surgeons using their flashlights from their phones to carry out an operation. So how would you convince people to see, you know, where you're headed with the strike?
Well, I'll start by this, that Nigerian National Resident Doctors have a workforce of over 16,000 residents and will form the major part of the workforce in the hospitals. But we also know that we have senior colleagues that are the medical and dental and the consultants that still mount the accident and emergencies, map the wards and manage the clinics. And they have been able to help to see that Nigerians still get some level of care in the hospitals. But we also know that in the oath given by doctors, it also states in the oath that the physicians should take care of his or her own health first before you take care of other people's health. We also know that members are made to be punished when they do not treat patients, or when they make a hungry man go see a patient when he is also hungry, is not well mentally, physically, and financially. So what service do you expect him or her to give to the patient? As of that time, he's also a patient, because financially, mentally, physically, it's not, you say he's in good health. So you want such person to see you and make mistakes?
Okay.
I think the answer will be no.
All right. I think we would wrap it up here. Dr. Uyilawa Okwayesui, I hope I pronounced that right, President, National Association of Resident Doctors. As we, of course, get more information, we'll definitely bring you in to share your thoughts with us, and, of course, as the strike goes on. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you again.
Thank you for having me, and have a lovely day.
You too.
You too.
All right. Stay with us here on The Breakfast. There's a lot more conversations coming your way this morning on Plus TV Africa. The conversation on banditry, kidnapping of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, Sheikh Ahmad Gumi, also. Some of all of this we're talking about next here on The Breakfast.
do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
If you no talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 and they pay.
There has to be a decision point. The way your baby is presenting, we have to rush you in. And my partner at the time was like, "You going to cut her? Are you going to cut her? Is it going to leave a scar?" And I said, "Am I a belly dancer? What is the problem here?"
No, I'm vulnerable about the future of the children, the future of mine and the future of the generation of my children.
I want to have nude pictures taken. Of you? Yes,
Yeah,
but
we
without
have
showing my private parts. I want to put it in my front room. And they said, "You can't do that. People will be embarrassed when they came into your house." I said, "Well, it's my body and it's my front room."
All the things that we do, what is the purpose of it?
I just realized that I was more trusting before I was 6.
So many women, they just feel like I have to cook for my husband, I have to breastfeed my children, I have to pick them from school.
Because society expects
Then you
them
go
to.
home and you cry and you stop your career, you can't do anything, then you blame everybody. You took that choice.
When it comes to, issues that affect, people or a certain thing, we already know what the external problems are. We know who the aggressors are, but we need to focus more internally.
This is a country where we have issues of abuse virtually every day, and yet the Ministry of Government, which was set up to be at the forefront of that issue, is barely seen.
Implying that Nigerians outside Nigeria do not have a right to be concerned, do not have a right to have a say with things that are happening in Nigeria is not acceptable.
The question should not even be whether or not these Nigerians are in diaspora. It's a question of every Nigerian should be given an opportunity to air their view.
Religion has caused us enough harm at this point.
Yeah.
Until the religious institutions get their act together, know exactly why God allowed, the traditional God called them to be, they are going to cause you more problems.
Here's to strong women. May we know them, may we be them, and may we raise them. The progress of women is progress for all of us.
The World Trade Organization has appointed a former Nigerian finance minister as the new head of the organization.
I'm very proud to be the first African. I'm proud to be the first woman.
My guest tonight is a critically acclaimed author from Nigeria whose most recent bestseller. Please welcome Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
Giving priority to women is not an option, it is a necessity. So go, girl. Tell that story that has not been told before. Step into that spotlight and shine. Get up, get going. The world is waiting to be wowed by your very existence. Because when you go where no woman has been, you have no idea just how many will follow.
Politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the results of tomorrow's election. You have it already, have you?
I am not hungry. If I need appointment, all I need to do is to start praising government.
Plus, politics will fill the polls of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows, to clones and stooges. We go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to analyze the story behind the story.
Let everybody come and say. The moment we stop having charlatans occupy political offices, we will curtail hate speech.
Plus Politics, not just another political show. It's about putting you, the citizens, in the know.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. From the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid. is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Welcome back to the Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. We're now heading to our second big conversation this morning. And over the weekend, on Easter Sunday, April 4th, former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo and a prominent religious leader, Sheikh Gumi, met in Abeokuta to discuss security situations in Nigeria and prefer solutions out of them. And to discuss this, we've invited Mr. G.T. Ogunye, political analyst. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. During this meeting, Obasanjo and Sheikh Gumi, raised a 21 points communique, and they preferred solutions to the insecurity challenges in Nigeria, in addition to asking the federal government or making a recommendation to set up special courts to try bandits. But we spoke to analysts this morning who said just setting up special courts would not address the problem of insecurity in Nigeria. Let's get what you think about this particular recommendation.
First, we need at this time to look at the messengers, not just the message, and the medium they've chosen to convey their message to the Nigerian people and the government. My understanding is that what the duo did was to make a recommendation to the federal government on the way forward as far as how to deal with bandits in the country is concerned. So if we look at the duo, the critical question we must ask is why are they making this recommendation? What's their motive? Is it pure, noble, and constructive? My view is that it is not. In particular, because of the role that has been played by Sheikh Gumi. I don't see Sheikh Gumi as a good faith recommender. The way he's been willing and dealing with bandits makes his suggestion and recommendation suspicious at this time. And I think that our intelligence services community should really be gathering intelligence on what the motives and actions of Sheikh Gumi, are. Really. And I don't see him as a good faith recommender, making this suggestion. That's number one. Number two is that for the president, former president of the country, look, there is a council of state that is established by the constitution, which is an advisory body. Even if the president of the country does not call on him to give suggestions, I know that it's been battered in the past for perpetually writing letters and all that. He could generate a memo on his concern, circulate it amongst the former head of state in the country, and call for a Council of State meeting to discuss the dire security situations of Nigeria. This side, recommendation that is turned into a media celebration is not the way to go, if you ask me. And now, number 3, what is even the substance of the recommendation? That bandits be appeased and told not to do what they are doing anymore, so they should be resettled and they should be accommodated if they are willing to surrender. Resettled where? So when you are talking about resettlement, not rehabilitation, look at the exact word, resettlement, not rehabilitation.
Well, they've also spoken about...
If these persons are not Nigerians, they have a right to be resettled in Nigeria.
Mr. Ogunye, sorry. Mr. Ogunye, they've also spoken about special courts for bandits and kidnappers. Do you think that maybe, that might be a quick answer also?
The what?
They also mentioned the setting up of special courts to address banditry and kidnapping.
How many special courts will you be setting up? It's been suggested in the past by no other person than less than the Attorney General of the country that you set up a sexual offences court. So anti-robbery court, anti-kidnapping court, anti-pipeline vandalization court. Are we serious as a people? You think that you set up court at the drop of the hat? If you have a court that has a criminal jurisdiction designated by the court, by case assignment, can you get those courts to take the cases? In Lagos here and elsewhere, there are certain courts in lieu of the establishment of the anti-corruption court that we called for in this country. There were certain courts that were designated by the heads of courts as courts that were taking the EFCC cases. Justice Olubunmi Oyewole was one of them before he went to the Court of Appeal in Lagos here. And that was how the Brazilian bank fraud case was cracked in this Lagos. So you can designate certain courts in the existing court system as courts that will take these cases. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to be creating courts anyhow now. These people that are making this suggestion, do they know what they are talking about? With due respect to them.
All right.
Is that how to govern the country? So anti-kidnapping is right, set up a court. Ritual killings is right, set up a court. Ritual killing. Yahoo is right, set up a court for Yahoo. Set up a court on anything. So at the end of the day, you then have thematic courts. Is that how you operate the criminal justice system of a country? So if we have problem with our judiciary in terms of delay, in terms of its dilatory procedure, in terms of prosecutorial problems, in terms of, not only that, in terms of the executive even faithfully implementing judgments of courts. Because you think that it's the problem of the judiciary alone. No. In this country, our laws provide still for the death penalty. So our judges are made to pass death sentences. No state governors want to sign execution warrant because they think that there will be blood in their hands. Yet they are stealing and robbing the country blind every day. And thereby making our people to suffer and some of them to die because they are being killed by preventable diseases, roads are bad and all that. Their welfare is not being taken care of. So indirectly, they are killing our people. Indirectly, laws are in their hands, but they don't want to sign execution warrant. Yet, they've not amended our criminal law to delete the death penalty as a punishment. Is that a faithful execution of the laws? When a governor swear an oath every time, I shall faithfully discharge the function of my office. I shall execute all the laws of the country. They don't do their own bit. So I'm telling you, that, and indeed, this is what also encourages, in a way, extrajudicial killings by the police. We can blame police all we want, but the truth of the matter is that when they arrest some of the people with guns, armed robbers, kidnappers, and all that, they know that down the line, the criminal justice system will not be faithfully operated to ensure that the sanctions that are provided by the law are applied.
Okay.
So they take the law into their hands and they kill them.
Mr. Ogunye,
because they know that down the line they will release them anyway. They will not kill them.
Mr. Ogunye, we've heard what you think about, this point in the communique about the setting up of special courts and all the holes that are possibly in this recommendation. But let's look at the 13th point of their communique. And former President Olusegun Obasanjo and Sheikh Gumi here recommended that Nigeria as a country have a common policy on dealing with terrorists. And they say that we should stop having situations where one state would pay ransom to bandits and another state will say they would never pay ransom. And one state would negotiate with bandits, another state would say they would not. Where we have different, different responses to banditry in Nigeria. Do you also have, opposing thoughts to that particular recommendation, or do you see a common policy on insecurity as something that we should adopt in the country?
That's the point I'm making. I'm saying that Gumi in particular does not have the integrity to make this recommendation. Who is it to be making such recommendation? I consider he has the right to freedom of speech, but I warn that the media should not be too eager to lap up everything that these people say. Was he not the one encouraging the payment of ransom, talking about settlement, talking about talking to them, talking about accommodating them, saying that they were offended, saying that they have been left in the lodge? So why are they not making recommendation for armed robbers or ritual, murderers?
Mr. Ogunye, if you look away from the messenger, if you look away from, maybe the antecedents of the people making these recommendations, do you see any merit at all to the suggestion?
Listen. Please. Look, the devil cannot be suggesting peace to me. When the devil does that, I must make an inquiry as to what the intent of the devil is. We are in the period of Easter now. Satan was said to have approached Jesus and told him, jump.
Are you referring that Sheikh Gumi here would be, the devil in your statement?
You are the one suggesting that. I'm just making an analogy.
But it's
your
words I'm quoting back to you, sir.
I not tempt the Lord thy God. I won't jump. So I'm telling you that Sheikh Gumi. Okay, let me just dilate here a little. Look, part of the problem that we have here, and Nigeria must pay attention. Part of the problem that we have here, in the north particularly, about banditry, is that banditry that we are dealing with in the north that's manifested in Boko Haram, because they are linked. El-Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State, are just alleged 2 days ago so that ransom that are paid are funneled into Boko Haram war. So there is a link. So the Gumi that we are talking about must be dissected. Look, the banditry we are talking about in the north has a religious dimension.
Yeah, and
that's where I'm
going
are not
into.
just fighting a war.
Yeah, that's where I'm about to go into.
Doesn't make any meaning to them.
Ms. Ogunye, I want, now you've spoken about the religious, aspect of it. In the recommendations, number 10 there, it says, and that is with regards to the role that Nigerians should play. It says that all well-meaning Nigerians should be involved in finding solutions by desisting from blame game, desisting from ethnicizing these crimes, desisting from regionalizing these crimes also. Do you think that is possible, that we can take away ethnicity and religion from, this conversation?
Look, maybe these people are just pretending to be statesmen, and then they are making this recommendation. So when you want to deal with Boko Haram, are you going to deny the fact that it's basically Kanuri-driven in terms of those who are fighting this war? And it is in that area. And it is in that area they are claiming that they want to forge a theocratic Islamic state. That's a reality you have to deal with. So if you are espousing that fact, how does that make you somebody that is giving a religious twist to the argument, or ethnicizing it, or regionalizing it? So that's why I'm saying that, look, when a problem hits a country like this, people that should not even make suggestion on the way forward. It is the brightness of the day that brings forth the other. I'm telling you, Kumi should go and deal with a religious issue that he's dealing with, and then teach his adherents on how to be tolerant. That's part of the problem that we're dealing with.
Mr. Ogunye, you seem to be, ignoring that Obasanjo also made contributions to this. I don't know if that might in any way influence your comments, because Chief Olusegun Obasanjo and Sheikh Gumi came together to make this suggestion. So it wasn't entirely Sheikh Gumi who wrote this and sent it off to the press.
Look, one needed the other.
Does Obasanjo have any merits with you at all?
One needed the other. Obasanjo, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, had not been involved in recent times in this banditry issue. Sheikh Gumi has been in the news, going to the bush, negotiating with everybody, moving in and out with ease, unscathed. So Obasanjo needed him for validation, and Sheikh Gumi needed Obasanjo for validation. It's a case of mutual need. That's the point I'm making. I'm not saying that there is no problem here. I'm not saying that if you look at their 10-point demand or suggestion, you can't look at it as, okay, yes, for example, the suggestion that we should have a uniform way of dealing with bandits. One state shouldn't be offering ransom, another state not offering ransom. That's good. Indeed, the Sultan of Sokoto earlier had warned the Nigerian military that he was a colonel in the army, that when an enemy combatant takes guns against you, self-capture, you destroy him. That this whole idea of Buratai talking about, rehabilitating bandits, rehabilitating Boko Haram warriors was wrong-headed. He said it publicly. Okay? So I agree that there's a need to have, equal treatment and all that. But I'm saying on this occasion, the good suggestion this duo may make, in my view, is overshadowed by their posturing, by their antecedents, by their current disposition on the same subject, particularly Sheikh Gumi. That's the point I'm making.
All right. Hopefully, if it came from, totally different persons, we might be, we might see things different, or is that possible? Do you think that if this message came from entirely different personalities, it might have had a different feel?
Possibly. But yes, possibly. If other persons are the one making this suggestion, my disposition will be different. And really, this is an indictment on the government. When people talk about government, people don't understand it very well. By the doctrine of social contract, the people were supposed to have gathered and surrender their collective wish to self-government to the government to govern them. So the government must lead. The government must not be led. So if the government is leading, all these suggestions will not be necessary. Sheikh Gumi will not be relevant. And Obasanjo's position will not be relevant because the government will have moved ahead. Some of these suggestions that they made that you are now calling me this morning to come and be discussing as something of value, government will have been dealing with that.
All right.
But what we see in Katsina State, you see people dealing with bandits, taking guns from them. In Zamfara State, you see them saying that they are going to give them cows.
Okay, G.T. Ogunye.
And healers vehicles.
All right, we have to round up here. But of course, you've shared your thoughts very, very well on this conversation this morning, and we hope that we can, of course, bring you back again as soon as possible. If there's other developments from this conversation. Thank you very much for joining us and for speaking with us this morning.
Thanks again, Mr. Omiye.
Yeah, thank you, man.
All right, and that's where we say goodbye here this morning on The Breakfast. It's been a very interesting Monday morning, from speaking with the president of the National Association of Resident Doctors, and now, of course, to G.T. Ogunye with regards security, banditry, kidnapping, and the likes. Thank you very much for starting up your week with us. If you missed out on any of this, get on our social media platforms at Plus TV Africa, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Yes, thanks again. I am Anetta Felix.
And I am Osaogi Ogbawa. See you tomorrow.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Point. The way your baby's presenting, we have to rush you in. And my partner at the time was like, "You going to cut her? Are you going to cut her? Is it going to leave a scar?" And I said, "Am I a belly dancer? What is the problem here?"
No, I'm vulnerable about the future of the children, the future of mine and the future of the generation of my children.
I want to have nude pictures taken. Of you? Yes, but without showing my private parts. I want to put it in my front room. And they said, "You can't do that. People will be embarrassed when they came into your house." I said, "Well, it's my body and it's my front room."
All the things that we do, what is the purpose of it?
I just realized that I was more trusting before I was 6.
So many women, they just feel like I have to cook for my husband, I have to breastfeed my children, I have to pick them from school.
Because society expects
them. Then you
them
go home and you cry and you stop your career, you can't do anything, then you blame everybody. You took that choice.
When it comes to issues that affect people or a certain thing, we already know what the external problems are. We know who the aggressors are, but we need to focus more internally.
This is a country where we have issues of abuse virtually every day, and yet the Ministry of Government, which was set up to be at the forefront of that issue, is barely seen.
Implying that Nigerians outside Nigeria do not have a right to be concerned, do not have a right to have a say with things that are happening in Nigeria, is not acceptable.
The question should not even be whether or not these Nigerians are in diaspora. It's a question of every Nigerian should be given an opportunity to air their view.
Religion has caused us enough harm at this point.
Yeah.
Until the religious institutions get their act together, know exactly why God allowed, or the traditional God called them to be, they are going to cause you more problems.
Thanks for joining us on Plus News Brief. I am Annetta Felix. Former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo and popular Islamic scholar Sheikh Abubakar Gumi have asked the federal government to propose and set up special courts to try bandit cases. They made the suggestion when they met to discuss possible solutions to the security challenges in Nigeria. The meeting, held at the residence of the former president in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, as part of efforts to find solutions to the menace of banditry, kidnapping, and payments of ransom, among other security threats in Nigeria. After the exchange pleasantries, Gumi briefed Obasanjo on measures and steps he had taken to stem the tide of insecurity in many parts of the north. Tragedy struck on Sunday in Chikun local government area of Kaduna State as bandits attacked Katama village in the local government, killing 5 people and injuring 1. Confirming the incident, the Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arwan, said the bandits attacked the community in the early hours of today and started shooting sporadically, which led to the death of 5 people. In another incident, troops of Operation Safe Haven reported a clash between some youth in Atuku village of Jema local government area, during which one Afiniki Thomas sustained a severe injury on his forehead after he was attacked by 2 youth. One of the assailants, Sani Safianu, was arrested for profiling and investigation, while the victim was rushed to the hospital for treatment. A strong link has been established between bandits terrorizing the northwest and the Boko Haram insurgents operating in the northeast. Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai, who said this on Sunday, explains that his government would not negotiate with bandits. The governor lamented that banditry and insurgency have evolved with time into what he described as a business and a structured industry. He explained that the criminals now have various specialized roles with their ranks, which enable them to attack communities. The Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has encouraged Nigerians to have great hope that things will get better for the country amid the insecurity and other challenges in Nigeria. The Vice President gave the words of encouragement during a brief chat with journalists after he attended the Easter Sunday service held at the Aso Villa Chapel in Abuja, the nation's capital. While wishing Nigerians a happy Easter celebration, Professor Osinbajo believes the message of Easter is a message of the special and exceeding love and grace of God. According to him, the Easter season is one of great joy because Christians celebrate the evidence of the plan of God, who has given humanity a receipt of salvation in some way.
The message of Easter is a message of the special and exceeding love and grace of God. God's plan for humanity was that Christ would die and be resurrected. The resurrection is evidence of the fact that those who believe will be saved eternally and will live in eternal joy and peace with the Almighty God. And that promise is open to every single person. Whatever you believe, whoever you are, that promise is open to you. That if you subscribe to that plan, if you accept that Christ died for you and rose again, that plan is fulfilled in the resurrection, and that plan is available for every single person who accepts. So today is a day of great joy because we celebrate the evidence of the plan of God. We celebrate, so God has given us a receipt of our salvation, and it's really exciting. So I just want to thank God for our nation.
The serving overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church, Pastor Tunde Bakare, has asked the federal government not to pay lip service to the insecurity challenges confronting the nation. The clergyman made this call on Sunday during the State of the Nation broadcast at his church. According to him, if something urgent is not done, the current administration may be on the wrong side of history.
We have heard from the Emir of Daura, Alhaji Umar Farouk, who lamented that what Nigeria is experiencing now is worse than civil war. We have heard from the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Muhammad Hussain Abubakar III, CFR, who declared that the North is, in his words, the worst place to be in this country because bandits go around in the villages, households, and markets with their AK-47 and nobody's challenging them. We have also heard from the Oni of Ife, Obadeye Eni Togunwusi, who is speaking on behalf of other Yoruba traditional rulers, including the Alaafin of Oyo, Oba Lamidi Adeyemi, and the Awujale, Oba Sikiru Kade Adetono, cried out to the president over the state of insecurity in the southwest. The lamentations of the royal fathers have been echoed by socio-cultural groups across the country, including Ohaneze Indigbo, the Arewa Consultative Forum, and Afenifere. The Northern Elders Forum has gone as far as calling for the resignation of the president. Even governors and lawmakers have joined the lamentations. From one declaration to another, and from one resolution to another, the consensus among the stakeholders is that Nigeria is in a state of emergency.
Repeating his stand on restructuring, Pastor Bakare argues that there is no better long-term solution to various challenges than the devolution of the current political arrangement. For Christians in Lagos, Easter this year is a different one. With worshippers battling the after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the senior pastor of House on the Rock, Paul Adefarasi, says Christians do not have to fight for victory, but from a position of victory because of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Vivian Oguchi has more.
From tracing the steps of Jesus along the Via Dolorosa, which is the path of suffering, to processions and plays showing the death of Jesus, Christians have been counting down to Easter, the most important festival in the Christian calendar.
He is alive again.
In Lagos, worshippers express joy despite the after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Pastor Paul Adefarasi of House on the Rock says because Jesus Christ rose again, Christians can count on being triumphant no matter the challenge.
His suffering was his secret weapon. The root of the resurrection is the crucifixion. The fruit of the crucifixion is the resurrection. We're talking about being rooted in Christ. Do you know that all the mess in your life has been subjected to a program called the DNA seed of God? That once you are planted or buried in your mess, it will turn your mess into your message. It will turn your pain into your power. It will turn your misery into your ministry. It will turn your mourning into dances. Your ashes will become your place of beauty.
Easter means different things to different Christians, but it all points to victory.
A lot of people were doubting that I wasn't Jesus.
If Jesus Christ had not risen up from the dead, we would not be here today. The rising of Jesus Christ is what bettered Christianity.
You know, he brought joy to the world.
We are celebrating that victory that God gave us over the power of death.
Courtesy the Resurrection Day initiative, people are given gifts to celebrate Easter as they leave the church premises, with an admonition to keep the faith alive. Vivian Oguche for Plus TV, Africa.
Thank you, Vivian. And as Nigerians join the rest of the world to celebrate Easter, the Christian faithful have been urged to live with the consciousness of hope and a better tomorrow. This formed the homily of the convener of Christ Holy Mountains, Apostle Sadiq Moses, who says Easter commemorates a new chapter that replaces doom, gloom, and darkness. While charging Christians to live lives devoid of worry, Apostle Moses encourages the citizenry to continue to pray for the nation.
There is hope for you. And that hope is only in Christ Jesus. That hope can only be found in the presence, in the hand of the creator, the creator of heaven and the earth. And there's another phase of life that have been opening to us. Now we should have hope for this new chapter of life that have been opened. Jesus said in Revelation 5 that he has come to open a book. And it's a book that has been closed, sealed for years. The Bible says no man was worthy in heaven and no man was worthy on earth. And this is the reason, or the original reason why Jesus came to die. He came to open a chapter, a new chapter of life that nobody could be able to open.
Expressing concern
that is a leader somewhere, you should always remember that someone created you. He created you to be a leader. Genesis 1:26. Created you and left you with power. And that power he left with is called dominion. Dominion is an ability to rule. So if you choose it as a leader, a president, or a governor, it means somebody who created you gave you that power years, many years ago, before you were sent to the earth to come and use it to lead his people. So if you have this opportunity to rule people, remember God. Because there is always a room to raise another stone in replacing someone who cannot rule well.
A day after his wife, Yinka Odumaki, Jo has continued to receive friends and allies of her late husband. Plus TV Africa correspondent Kayode Ladende spoke with the human rights activist, and she shared his last moments and the efforts battling COVID-19 complications.
For those close to the couple, Yinka and Jo Odumaki,
sharing my last moments with my comrade, my better half. The whole, thing started around March 8th. One of the reasons why I kept it, to my chest is that I had wanted Yinka himself to tell the story, because that would be better and that would be sweeter. He's always asking for his iPad, he wants to write, and I know it will be soothing for him, and I was looking forward to that. So a day before this tragic incident, honestly, I never believed that Yinka would meet him at Alagbon and being there together and knowing how Yinka is. Because it's so difficult for me to start using past tense for him. I mean, after being together for 24 years.
She narrates her husband's continued battle with COVID-19 complications and his resilience to see a new Nigeria in spite of his deteriorating health conditions.
And he has a series of appointments that he wanted to make. But unfortunately, he went to his, he went to his physiotherapist and then found out that his oxygen level had dropped to 70-something, but he still left and went for those meetings. I was called. I followed him up. After following up, the doctor had, after attending to him, found that he had COVID, and then he was transferred to Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, the isolation center. The next day, his oxygen dropped a bit, so we had to move to Mainland Hospital. That's yes, Ayaba. But all the medication were given to him, and after a few days, he was tested. It was positive. Then thereafter, after a few days again, it was tested. It became negative.
Some friends and allies recount Yinka's principled stand on the state of the nation and the need to uphold the legacy.
We lost a pillar in the struggle that I don't think we can get it back in a very short time, and make sure that we that still remain on heart continue where we stopped the struggle.
It was a great shock because we never heard of him being sick, and there was no inkling that he's even, bedridden under whatever condition. I decided to come on behalf of the Corps Marshal and the entire family of Federal Safety Corps to come and, console her as one of us, and to also pray that God will take care of those that are left behind.
Until his death, he was very vociferous against the headsman menace and the quest to have a restructured Nigeria, giving more power to federating units to develop at their own pace. Kayode Ladende, Plus TV Africa.
Founder of Clean Foundation, Innocent Chukwuma, is dead. He died on Saturday evening at 55 after he was diagnosed with leukemia, an aggressive cancer of the blood. The religious studies at the University of Nigeria, but gained prominence as a students' union leader. He was a founding member of the Civil Liberties Organization, CLO, before he started Clean Foundation. The father of 3 daughters was diagnosed Friday night and died before he could begin a scheduled chemotherapy session on Saturday night. To other parts of Africa, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says Ethiopia's military is fighting on 8 fronts in hotspots, including the northern Tigray region, where adversaries have adopted guerrilla tactics. His comments indicated that intense fighting continues in Tigray, where Abiy declared victory more than 4 months ago. The winner of the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize sent troops into Tigray in November to detain and disarm leaders of the regional ruling party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF. Abiy said the move came in response to TPLF orchestrated attacks on federal army camps. Federal forces backed by Ethiopia troops and also from Eritrea quickly captured cities and towns. Outside Africa, Iran and the United States say they will hold indirect talks in Vienna from Tuesday